Hey folks, SoloGamer here, and I want to talk about a new game we're going to be adding to our series here. It's called Level 7 Escape. First, let's talk about how I ended up getting this game. As you know, if you've watched any of my other stuff, you know I love horror games. I love solo horror games. And I like to have different themes. Arkham Horror, Touch of Evil, Ghost Stories, they're all different type themes. But I didn't have a good science fiction horror game. And truly be honest with you, there's not that many out on the market really. So I would like a good science fiction horror game to play that you can play solo. Mainly something like Dead Space. I love the Dead Space video games. They're my favorite games on the PlayStation. So something of that nature. Well, I hardly ever do this, but I just happened to be making it at a GameStop, my local game store, and just be looking around at his games. And I did something I don't ever do. I made an impulse buy. That's right. I had money to burn, about $100, and I looked at it, thought about it for a while in the store, stood there, thinking, I know the owner is probably like he's going to steal something. And I finally said, screw it. I'll risk it and I'll buy it without even knowing anything about the game. So I bought it. And I bought the base game, Level 7 Escape. And then it came with, they also have an expansion for it called Level 7 Escape Lockdown. And this is it right here. So I bought them both. And that's all they have for this game right now. They have another game called Level 7 Protocol, but it's basically it's a totally different animal. It takes place at the same place, but it's kind of like how Mansions of Madness is different from Arkham Horror, yet they both take place and use a lot of the same characters and same elements. So 11-7 Protocol is really a two-player game, whereas this one right here you can play solo, because in Level 7 Protocol, one person is the soldiers and one is the overseer. So I brought this game home. Before I opened the box, so I got on the internet and looked and see what people thought of this game. And right off the bat, I started getting a little worried. The reviews for this game were not that great. Most of them that I saw. And a lot of what they were saying that were bad about this game was the rules. Or it had been done, a game like this had been done before, but it had been done better. And that kind of stuff. So I started getting buyer's remorse. But I sat down and I played a couple games using both the base game and the expansion. And I made so many mistakes the first game because there are a lot of complex rules in this game. It's a lot of stuff you have to remember. This game is a basic, simple game, but with all this other stuff you have to remember, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we play it, kind of muddles the game up. It's like they tried too hard and to be too different, and a lot of games make this mistake. They got a couple good ideas, but then they muddle things up trying to be too different, or too let me say, innovative, and put some crazy rules or something in there. So I've only played this game twice, and I got better a second time, but I still made mistakes. So what we're going to do is this game is scenario based. It has 7 scenarios in the base game, and basically each scenario takes you through a level. Hence level 7. And the goal is to ultimately escape the facility. But in the facility there are these evil clone monsters and some crazy alien doctor has been experimenting, and this is a prison, so there's guards in there trying to stop you from escaping. And then Lockdown adds a couple more scenarios to it, and some new monsters, I should say, some new cards, and some more tiles. So you got a pretty good bit of play on this game with all those scenarios. But we're going to start at the first scenario, and we're going to play through it, and you're going to see whether or not and you're going to go with me on this, and you're going to see whether or not I made a big mistake and wasted $100 on this game, or if I broke even, it's okay game, or if this game is very underrated and has a bad rep, because it does have kind of a bad rep on the internet. So we'll set it up and we'll come back and we'll explain how this game plays. But like I said, I've only played it twice, so if I make some mistakes, don't have a shit attack. I'm learning as I go, and you're gonna learn with me as I go, and hopefully we'll decide if the game is worth it. So I'm gonna pause it, load it up. Well, I'll pause it, won't load up. Pause it, go over the components, and see what we got. Okay, so as you can see, we have a bunch of stuff here on our board. And this game has 4 characters. Now, this game doesn't come with miniatures. This game comes with card stands. But you know, I'm indifferent to that, really. And you start the game with these little card things here, and you have each person has all their stats, and then we have wheel stat, or you know, a mind stat. You have a strength stat, you have a speed stat, and you have a toughness stat. Okay, and at the beginning of the game, each person gets to pick 2 skill cards. And these are skill cards, as you can see, and you put them right next to your thing. And that's basically the only thing that's going to separate each of these characters. All these characters have the same stats, but depending on what skills you get is what makes it different. You start the game most of the time, unless you want, you start the game at 5 vitality, and you put this little vitality token there to remember. And then each scenario will tell you where your fear starts. And here's your little fear token. And you put it on here. And this scenario says we start at 5. And your fear is going to move up or down depending on the situation. And as you can see, you can get bonus stats for it to move up. But you also get penalties for it to move up. As you'll come to find out with this like clone figure. And you never really want your fear to get so high that it's hurting you and all that kind of stuff. Then you have a box to put threat tokens in, and we'll go over that in a second. So those are your characters, and the basic gist of it is you wake up in this prison here in level 7. I forget the name of the prison. It's what's it called? Hell with it. We'll forget the name. Anyways, so and you start here. And basically what you can do is you can move your speed. Like this guy has a speed of 2, he can move speed of 2. And see, as you see how the doors on this game have these arrows by them. That means you can move that way and when you move, you'll put another tile there. So let's take this tile from this stack right here, and I'll show you how that goes. So it's his turn, he can move. Alright, so you flip your next tile, and you have to match the arrows up the best you can. So you can see it would be like that. So he can move into here, and so forth. We'll put this aside for a second. And so that's basically how the game goes. You explore a tile, and as you'll notice on these tiles, some of them will have symbols, some of them won't. We'll go over that in a second. So each scenario will tell you what you have to do in order to survive it, and it'll tell you how to stack the tiles and how many tiles to put in each stack. So the first scenario tells you to make a stack of 8, and then make a stack of 6, and then put the rest of the tiles over here. Now I have both tiles from both the expansion and the base set in here. And they pretty much, you can put the expansion into the base set pretty seamlessly. Okay, so and then it tells you, you know, what you have to do. You first use these tiles, and then at a certain point, when you're done with those, you use these tiles. You won't be able to really complete the objective until you at least do the first stack in the scenarios that I've played. And then, you know, you can try to get your scenario tile through here, but if you can't, then it'll come over here. And then we also have item cards, but the first scenario says there's no item cards in play. So we won't be using these, but for the most part in other scenarios you can use them, and you get like a bulletproof vest and, you know, map fragment and meta pack and stuff like that to help you out. Okay, and you can only, as far as I remember, you can only carry 2 items. Okay, so when we have various tokens here, we have threat tokens. See these little threat tokens here, and you have a little threat box. And each scenario, as you see, will have a threat pool, threat tokens. And if you something happened and you have to get a threat, well, you'll take a threat token from that pool and you'll put it in your little threat box. Okay, threat is the level that the guards see you at. And here's our guards right here. And these are the guards, and they have 2 different sides, like this. And guards will always attack the person with the most threat, or they will move around the map tiles chasing the person with the most threat. So, and you can earn threat different ways. If you get attacked, or if you're in the same spot as another hero, and a few others. So you want to try to keep as less threat as possible. And each scenario tells you how many guards you put in a pool. Like this first scenario tells you have 4 guards. So you put them in order, 1, 2, 3, 4. They all have the same stats, and put them there. And this is the only amount of guards that will show up during this game, this scenario. Then we have our clone monsters, and they're the same way. This scenario says put 6 clone monsters in. So we put 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we're using the special rule for lockdown on this one. Lockdown introduces these new little kind of like hybrid or whatever clones. And the lockdown thing says you can take one of these clones out. We took the 6th one out and put this one at the very bottom. So we do that. I like to use expansion as much as I can. Whereas the guards go after you for how much threat you have. The clones go after you for how much fear you have. So the clones will show up and attack or try to go after the person with the highest fear. So you want to try to avoid that. Clones can also move through vents. What are vents, you say? Well, that's a good question. Let's find a tile here. And we have vent tokens, and sometimes the vent card or something will tell you to put a vent token on there to connect these places. But let's find a tile with a vent here. We don't have one. No. No, come on now. Alright, we'll keep looking. Nope. Okay, here we go. So this tile has a vent right here. Okay? So let's say you were to draw this tile. Okay, so let's say you were in this room. You could go into this vent and travel. You see how some tiles have this black thing? That's just the wall. But this stuff right here is the vents. And you can go into a vent and travel and come out on another tile that also has a vent. Okay? So that's one way you can move down. If you don't want to move through this door, or if you didn't want to move through this door, if you wanted to get someplace else on this tile, map tile, when you keep drawing them, and it'll be a lot bigger. If you wanted to come out someplace totally different on the opposite of the board, if the vent's connected to it, you could do that. The problem with the vents is that clones can move through vents as well. So if they smell your fear, and you got the most fear, they'll come after you through the vents. And let's take a look at our dice. Okay, you see our dice have the same icons except for the toughness that you see on there. And so usually you try to make checks. It tells you roll 3 dice and get at least two speed icons. Okay, well, we got 2 speed icons on these, so we pass our test. So if you're going to attack a monster, like this is the monster's attack, and the monster rolls 3 dice. Okay, and you have a toughness of 1. Alright, so it gets 2 fists, which is attack strength, and your toughness of 1 absorbs it, so then you take 1 damage because that's left. Alright, a little bit like Eldritch Horror. Well, how much health do you have? I don't see how any health. That's correct. So every player starts the game with the number of adrenaline cards according to their vitality. So he has 5 vitality, so you'll start with 5 adrenaline cards. Okay? So he's 5 adrenaline cards. You can use these cards at any time. You can use either, this card has 3 parts. You can use the top half, you can use the bottom half, or you can use this discard anytime to raise or lower your fear by 1. Okay, if you run out of adrenaline cards, or if you take a hit, then you're going to lose an adrenaline card. Or if you just use adrenaline cards, when you lose all your adrenaline cards, you are knocked out. And you go to this tile called the infirmary, which is set to the side. Okay, next turn, you wake up, you go back to a place, but your vitality is lowered to 4. So the next time you can only carry 4 adrenaline cards. Okay, and if you get knocked out again, your vitality go to 3. Adrenaline 3, and you can carry only 3 adrenaline cards. And if you get knocked out again, your skull goes to 0 and you die. Okay, if all the players are also ever on the infirmary tile at the same time, you lose the game, you die. So that's the adrenaline cards. Okay, and you know, you have event cards. So when you go to a new tile, let's say we got our new tile here, we had a symbol. So when you go to a new tile and you set it up, you have to go by what's on the thing. Now we'll get one that just has 1. Okay, like this card right here. You see it has an event. You were to move in here, and you can move 2 times and take an action. You can take an action and move 2 times, or you can move once, take an action, and then move again. Okay, but when you move into a tile that has a event thing on there, you have to stop and handle the event, and then once you handle the event, your turn is over. So what you'll do is you'll draw an event card. Now up here it will either be a guard face or a clone face. Guard face looks like that, and the clone face looks like the little clone. And you read the card from the top to the bottom. So if there was a, here like this one right here that says a clone, you would spawn a clone. That's the first thing you're going to do. Okay? Now, you spawn guards at these security icons if you had to spawn one. So if there was a guard there, if there was a tile with one of these icons on it, you would spawn a guard there. If there's no tile with that icon on it, you do not spawn. Same thing with the clone. They go by the fear icon. So if there was a tile with a fear icon, which we do have here, you would put a clone there from the clone reserve. You would put the first one there. So you would take this first clone and put them there. If there is no fear icon on the board, then for the most part you're not going to put a clone there. Now there are rules where you play alien base or guard base. We'll go over that once we get into the scenario, because not all scenarios use that. Okay, so let's say we didn't spawn. Let's say we didn't have to spawn. So then you read off the icon your tile is. Well, we would read the fear icon in that one and do what it says. And then at the bottom here it goes by the number of players. We have 2 players. So all guards would activate, and they would activate in their number order. So guard 1 would activate first, guard 2 would activate second, blah blah blah. And they activate by either moving, attacking, or getting up. And like I said, if they move towards the person with the highest threat, or the clones the person with the highest fear. If they're on the same tile as you, they're going to automatically attack. So they're not going to move, they're going to attack. And if they had been knocked out because you had beat them up, or a clone had beat them up, and guards and clones can fight each other. But we'll get into that later on as well. They'll just stand up and that's it. So that's basically what happens each turn. And so then it would be the next player's turn, and the next player would move, and so forth. Now if you move onto a tile that has no icon like that, and your turn ends, you still have to draw an event. You have to draw an event basically every turn. And so that's how that works. And the last thing I want to touch on is the lockdown. When the lockdown part of the scenario starts, the scenario tells you how many tokens you have on there. And when those tokens are over with, lockdown ends, and you lose the game because you can't get out. So that's basically the quick version of the rules. We'll get to more when we start playing. We'll go over one each by each, and we'll play, and we'll stop this video, load up, and play. And so SoloGamer saying, see you then.